Hello and welcome to the CT Sports Report. My name is Cody Teague, here with my partner in crime. Together today, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Calicut. Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, my friend. I hope you are. Man, it feels like it's been forever, but it's only been like 2 weeks. We're back on the air live on Google Hangouts. We'll have all the YouTube stuff up here in a bit. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Lots of things to tackle today before we get into next week, which we'll have a Monday show special next week. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But, yeah, man, excited to be back. Let's do it.
Absolutely. And as always, make sure you follow us on our main means of communication, which I've been posting a lot of stories that I find on, the Washington Post, CNN, a lot of people who are probably a lot more reputable than us, to say the least, at CT _ Sports Report on the Twitter, and also CT Sports Report on the Facebook, just to make sure you're following us every way you can on all aspects of social media. Now, me and Chris are together today to talk about a lot of hot topics, pop topics, and anything else you can imagine that we can put our mind to, because, hey, we haven't been together face-to-face in a while.
No, it's been a little while.
Glad to see this guy. Absolutely. Don't get it wrong. But moving forward, we're going to start off. Hold on, before. I don't have anything to make a pop sound, but I will say a little Southern Belle from 2H Brewing, me, Leslie, and Phil.
There you go.
And we're going to start off with a little pop topics before we get into the NFL news, some weird sports news that we have, and some other stuff. So, Chris, leading off into your pop topics, what do you have first for us today, sir?
All righty. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, get a little Southern reference for you. Little sport that's near and dear to our heart, tennis. Former doubles champions.
Yay, yellow ball.
Champions. Champions? Is that the right word?
For what?
Tennis? Us? Doubles partner? No?
We're champions everywhere we go. What are you talking about? Anyway, but go ahead. Yes, tennis story.
All right. Maria Sharapova, well known for, I guess, her looks just about as much as her tennis.
And her grunt.
Okay. Anyways, she will likely be suspended 2 to 4 years, 2 years minimum for sure, even for taking this substance called meldonium. She was tested positive at the Aussie Open this past January, and some little birdie told me that I had a mind-blowing fact coming my way about meldonium or something.
Absolutely. So meldonium is a drug that doctors prescribe to you that only should last about, a few weeks up to a few months. And she's been taking it for, 10 years.
Right.
Supposedly she has missed emails from the anti-doping agency, from the WTA and anti-doping agency for tennis. And for some reason, whoever checks her email, whether it be her or her agent,
intern messed up somewhere.
Who shouldn't have told her about this? It is ridiculous that she has gotten to this point in her career to where she's been taking this for 10 years. Yep. It's a drug that's only built to build you up for a couple of weeks to a couple of months. She's been taking it for 10 years. It's helped to build basically your immunity, and to help to build up your stamina for stuff that's going on around you.
Right.
It is ridiculous how she didn't know this. And then second of all, how at the beginning of this year, this is the first year that this drug has been disallowed by tennis and the Drug Association. How do you miss that email? I personally don't know. I check my emails every day, but yet I only have 2 email accounts I have to check. And this is something we'll touch on later in terms of Peyton Manning and stuff like that. But is it not a little bit coincidental that she made this announcement during around the same time that Peyton was making her announcement? That way, maybe not so many people, whether they're tennis fans or complete sports fans like Chris and myself, she made that announcement around the same time he was making his retirement announcement. She knew what she was doing. I respect what she did coming out publicly about it, but her timing was just a wee bit off.
She tried to fly under the radar just a smidgen, and somehow the sports news outlets have made it quite the big deal. And to me, that's actually somewhat surprising for women's tennis to make the front page, but it's also kind of sad that it took this, a scandal, to make women's tennis on the front page.
I mean, no, you're exactly right, because the only way we reach front page news with women's tennis is men's and women's tennis both had the betting scandal that was going on earlier in 2015, and then you had Serena Williams, who was threatening to shove the ball down one of the linesmen's throats. It's only bad things that brings attention to the women's game.
Yep. Now,
that is awful to say the least, but whoever's helping Maria Sharapova in terms of when to release news is doing a great job.
Oh, absolutely.
Great job.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening. And with her, like I said, 2-year minimum. It looks like a 4-year maximum. But if you look at it, she's on the back half of her career anyway. So 4 years out of the game, you might as well hang up the old racket and call it a career. Moving along, and Cody will get into this a little bit more later, but a little piece of breaking news this afternoon, if you're tuning in on Wednesday, Brock Osweiler, the heir apparent to Peyton Manning, does not want to live in his shadow. Smart move, if you ask me. He's going to the Houston Texans in a blockbuster 4-year, $72 million deal. That's a lot of money for a potentially good quarterback.
I mean, he's tall, he's good, he can see over the offensive line, which is better than Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, Marcus Mariota, possibly even Kirk Cousins, in terms of some of your lower tier quarterbacks that you hear of. But he's a tall guy, he can see over the line. We'll talk about one more addition to the Texans as we move forward.
Another good one. So they'll have the old 1-2 punch over there in Houston. Big news this past week. The Lakers.
The Fighting Kobe Bryants.
On the retirement series in L.A., defeated one Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors by a pretty wide margin, 112-95. Hopefully this was just a little blip on the radar for Steph and the Warriors, as they look like they recovered pretty nicely. But in that game, Curry only hit 1 3-pointer and was about 28% from the floor. So not the greatest outing for Mr. Curry.
Yeah, if you watch the game, I watched a few quarters of it myself. I honestly don't even know why Golden State was there. It was a throwaway game.
Yeah.
They're still ahead of the record by the Bulls. Mm-hmm. This game has absolutely nothing to do with any of the history that's going on right now. Steph Curry is the only person who's ever going to break his own 3-point record ever.
Sure. Yeah.
Might as well just move on. It's a throwaway game. They make Kobe look good at home. Nothing to worry about there.
No. And a little piece of ACC news. ACC Tournament gets started this week in Washington, D.C., but some unfortunate news for Boston College. Unfortunately, they become the first major college to ever go winless in their football schedule and their basketball schedule inside conference. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever heard, but one of the seniors, their center, I forget his name, and for that I apologize.
He was bawling in his news conference.
He was, but when one of the reporters asked him what the best part of the season was, you know what he said? Do you know what he said?
I don't, but I'm going to guess the end.
Wrong.
Oh.
But going out to eat while he was at Boston College.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is ridiculous how bad they've done. I really feel bad for Boston College. What can you do?
Man, I don't know. Their athletic department has never been amazing. It was very solid in the last when Matt Ryan was there for football.
In terms of football, yes.
Right. And their basketball team was good back in the day.
They had Doug Flutie, for God's sake.
And this is true.
Back in the 80s.
And so, I mean, they've always had a fairly reputable athletic department. Right now, definitely on a downward trend in the major sports, at least. So we shall see where their coaching things go from there.
Maybe if stuff stops happening with Chipotle in the Boston area, like the E. coli breakout. So it's not even E. coli. I forget the name of the stuff.
It's got a correlation, right? Correlation.
My fiance loves Chipotle. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves Chipotle except for me for some reason.
Okay.
It has everything to do with Chipotle in the Northeast. Anyway,
Chris,
Continue.
Last piece of the Pop Top for this week. Some exciting news for our local area.
Absolutely.
And being Bravos fans, even though they're probably not going to be great this year anyway.
Probably not.
Major League Baseball announced this week that the Braves and Marlins will be on a military base for the very first time. This will be the first time that a military base holds a major sporting event. This will be a regular season game between the Braves and the Marlins on July 3rd. Unfortunately, my busiest week of the year. So, but this will be in our home state of North Carolina, in Fayetteville at Fort Bragg. A brand new, I think it's 12,500 seat stadium that they just completed this year or are about to complete, one or the other. But that'll be a really good thing to honor the military and bring a major sporting event to our area as well.
Absolutely. Whether you support the troops or support what we're doing in any sort of wars that we have overseas, at home, whatever we're doing, this is a great thing for the people who are here at home in one of the most populated bases in America, Fort Bragg, here in Fayetteville. It's a great thing for the community, whether it's all military and surrounding areas. It is fantastic. I respect what MLB is doing. They're doing stuff in Cuba, doing stuff for the military. They're one of the sports that's leading the way in terms of leading everybody in terms of, hey, let's branch out here and do what we need to do to either, one, build a fan base, or two, show our appreciation for what people around us are doing. It's a great thing that's coming to our state. I'm honored, even though I'm not a military veteran. One of my family, except for one, was. I don't know about Chris, but it's fantastic for our state, and I definitely look forward. Even though it's not going to be revenue building, it's going to be something that leaves an impact on Fayetteville, which is where Fort Bragg is in North Carolina and surrounding areas. It's going to be a great thing.
I'm not even going to say Fayetteville's nickname right now. I want to be. I want this to be a completely
respectful. We're
completely positive event, which I think it really will be. Like I said, I would love to go. I've only been to one Braves game in my lifetime,
as have I,
and had a fantastic time. Got to see John Smoltz in one of his farewell seasons as a closer. So nice little memory on that. Hopefully, I'll be back one day in their new park. We shall see. All righty, that wraps up Top Tops. So we shall move along to NFL news. Lots of retirements, lots of big news going on right now with free agency opening today.
Absolutely. Lots of free agency news. We have some of the most recent news that's coming through in terms of what I have here on paper. And then we also have 2/3, depending on how big of a fan you are, in terms of retirements. The first one being
the Sheriff,
Peyton Manning.
You were looking for his middle name there, weren't you?
I wish.
Yeah,
I should have looked that up.
I have no clue.
I don't know why I didn't look that up.
Anyway.
But Peyton Manning did officially announce his retirement. It was leaked last Friday, leaking into Saturday in terms that it was going to happen. But, of course, he made his official announcement on Monday. He's officially done with the sport of football. By all means, I hope he goes to Saturday Night Live because he's one of the funniest people I've ever seen in terms of athletes moving to commercials. But a big topic of discussion for Peyton is he the best? Is he the best in the NFL? Is he the best quarterback? Is he the best ever to play the game? Just to shoot through some of his number here, not his rushing numbers. I have his rushing numbers. We're not going to touch on that. But in terms of
want to blemish it.
In terms of his percentage completed throughout his career, he's over 50%, 65.3. In terms of yards, 71,940, averaging 270 a game. He threw 539 touchdowns. In terms of interceptions, 251. Better than Brett Favre. But anyway, he was a great elite quarterback. For Chris and myself growing up, being one of the millennials that follow sports, old and new, he was possibly, if not one of the best athletes to ever come up through our generation. He's not the best in the NFL. I'm going to personally say that. But he may be the smartest quarterback to ever play in the NFL. He has the stats to show it. Only 2 Super Bowl rings. But, I mean, he will be missed.
He will, and I'll sort of piggyback on that a little bit. I don't think he's the most athletically gifted,
He's the least athletically gifted.
I mean, but that also proves your point that he changed the game, and our boy Cam Newton from the Panthers actually mentioned this in his little farewell address to Peyton, that he changed the game in the aspect of preparation.
Yes.
He does more homework than anybody.
Yes.
Always has, and probably will set that standard from, now going forward. The guy does his homework. He knows where you're going to be at every second of the down, every part of the play. And it just depends on how many Omahas he has to say to get you in the right place.
Yes.
So as far as preparation and the mindfulness of the game, he absolutely is one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it.
Absolutely. The only thing that's happened with Peyton here recently is during his retirement speech that he did have, and I just wanted to touch on this, is everyone knows about the Tennessee incident.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had an agreement in the late 90s, early 2000s that, okay, that incident is done. We're never talking about it again. What's he do? He writes about it in his book. It cost him more money.
Yep.
He's not supposed to talk about it. So what happens, the reporter asks him about that, and he talks about it. So we're waiting to see whether that's going to cost Peyton more money or if he's absolutely done with everything. I find no concern with the HGH being mailed to his wife's name incident. I don't believe that at all. But strictly looking at stats and how smart the guy was on the field, Peyton Manning was one of the elite quarterbacks to ever play the game. Not the best player to ever play a game, like some people are giving him credit for it.
Yeah.
But he was one of the best quarterbacks to ever play a game, and definitely, in my opinion, the smartest to ever play the game.
Most definitely. Now, moving forward, and we'll let the sheriff ride off into the sunset, as we spoke before our Super Bowl podcast. And let me mention before we move on to our next retiree, I was going back and looking at our old scripts.
Oh, God.
I'm pretty sure this show is the official 1-year anniversary of the CT Sports Report. Or at least we just passed it.
Today?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it started right before March Madness last year.
This is true.
I remember vividly the selection show special we did last year, which we'll bring back next week. So, hey, we've been at it for 1 whole year, ladies and gentlemen, with a little hiatus, granted. But
we have lives.
Exactly.
And jobs.
Something like that. So we are happy to be here for that 1 whole year. God knows us, along with probably 97% of our 3 listeners, did not think it would happen.
But still looking to get famous, ESPN, CBS, right. Anybody.
Hey, and shout out to Chef Michael Monahan at the Old North Steak Club for giving us a listen on the past couple podcasts. We appreciate his support and the folks over there.
Absolutely.
And our next retiree, Calvin Megatron Johnson.
Absolutely. Only spent 9 years in the game.
Only 9, and that's I'll validate that in a minute. Go ahead.
It's already validated because of what he had to do as a Detroit Lion and how much of a punishment he had to get through the 9 years that he was there. I think we can agree on that. He follows another great, Barry Sanders, who retires before the contract expires, who he's going to owe the Detroit Lions money, which is unfortunate because Barry Sanders had to pay over $30 million to the Lions. Mm-hmm. But Calvin Johnson, an ACC representative.
That's how we learned about him. We didn't. Yeah, we knew him before he got big. He was a force to be reckoned with at Georgia Tech.
Absolutely, over 11,000 yards, 731 receptions, 83 total touchdowns, 20+ yards, 20+ reception games. He had 190 of them.
Wow,
fantastic player.
All right, look. I saw a piece today on a fairly reputable website saying that Calvin Johnson is not a slam dunk Hall of Famer. And you know what? If you have a decent pair of eyeballs, whether you have 2 or 4, regardless. Okay, 6 right now. But anyways, contacts. But you just look at the guy, his athletic gifts, the things he did to defenders, the catches he made in traffic with his fingertips, you cannot disallow what he can do on a football field based on his term in the NFL. 9 years, leaving right at the end of his peak. He probably did peak about 2 years ago. But, you know, people want him to stay until he can't walk anymore, just like other NFL players who have been there too long. Johnson made this about himself, taking care of himself, and really didn't want to be there much more. So he did what he had to do. He got done with all his stats, 11,000 plus yards in 9 years. I think only 1 or 2 years under 1,000 yards. That's pretty solid stuff. So I don't see why he would not be in the Hall of Fame, even if he's not a first ballot. I think he is a slam dunk, as somebody said he probably would not be.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you follow us on CT_Sports Report at Twitter, I did post 2 articles last week about CTE, one for a women's soccer player and then one for Kevin Nash, a WWE wrestler. And those two, one a sport, one a sports entertainment.
Right.
CTE may not be the top priority, but Calvin Johnson, the man got hit. There's so many problems going on with the NFL. No offense to anyone around me and Chris who are not scientists.
Right.
We never will get a doctorate degree, let's be real.
Our wives might.
Oh, they probably will, let's be real. They're going to keep us up for the rest of our lives.
Exactly, so they can do this.
Yeah. But he's 30 years old. He's took a beating in Detroit. There's no telling what's going on with his mind right now. He's only 30 years old. He's probably saved up enough money that me and Chris will ever think to write down in terms of commas on a check ever in our lives. He's set for life. He's making the right decision. And in terms of how good he was with the situation that he was put in my opinion, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that would agree with us on that point.
The stats prove it.
Right. And going back to the writer that did the piece I was talking about, he is somewhat of a shock jock in those terms, to where he needs a headline to get clicks. So I'm sure he got several clicks and a lot of haters today in the mainstream sports world and among his compatriots in the sports media as well.
Absolutely. And me not know who this person is, because Chris ain't gonna leak the name. He didn't leak it to me, so I didn't slip, because let's be real, I'd be the person who do it. Whoever you are, and whoever watches this show, the 5 people who check it out,
absolutely,
you're wrong. Calvin Johnson, coming from the ACC, represent. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's taking care of his life, which is what you have to do now in the NFL. Because let's be real, they're not going to do it for you. That's another topic that we can speak 6 hours on if we needed to. So be prepared for us to talk about that maybe one day. If he doesn't get the first ballot Hall of Fame here in a few years, we'll be back to talk about that, because that is some BS.
Okay. Word.
Moving on, Chris. What we got next on the ballot?
We have some free agency news. Free agency opened today, I believe, at 4 p.m. And this is only day 1, so there's lots of chips yet to fall. But
it's been
what a day 1 has
day.
Been. What a day 1
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris has already touched on it. Brock Osweiler, 4-year deal, $72 million.
37 of which is in guaranteed money.
With the Houston Texans. Ladies and gentlemen, they did make the playoffs, but are they good enough in building the pieces around them? One more person to talk about after we move forward. But Brock Osweiler does sign the 4-year deal with them. He went at 5-2 in his last season, completing 61% of his passes for 1,967 yards, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Basically what it was is Elway said, hey, if you're not going to go over $13 million a year, I don't want you. So you know what Brock did? He found another place who was going to pay him more money, and he split. Every report that I'm reading said that Brock Osweiler did not want to be with the Broncos.
Right.
I have an opinion about that. whenever Peyton came back from his injury and he took back over, that's when Brock says, you know what? I don't belong here.
Right.
So he left. He's taking his talents to Houston, not South Beach.
No. Segue. South Beach is getting a talent to join Brock Osweiler.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Segue.
What I can think be a elite running back.
Because he was on my fantasy team this year.
Lamar Miller, formerly of the Miami Dolphins, who they had no running game.
No.
They wanted to go out there and they want to throw over you short passes to the tight end, short passes to the wide receivers. They wanted to do all that. But Lamar Miller, former running back of the Miami Dolphins, he signs a deal with the Texans shortly after he hears that Brock Osweiler is coming. $26 million.
Yep.
And here's the thing. He's only 24, which is young for a running back.
He's a young pup. He's still got plenty of tread on the tires.
And even for a pass-happy Miami Dolphins, 872 yards.
And you got to look at it, too, that they had running back by committee in Miami this year. They had 2 or 3 guys that they would go to.
You're right.
Lamar was just finally turning into their primary back.
Yes.
So he's just now getting into his prime. So you have a budding, potentially good Osweiler joining Lamar Miller, who I think can be good for the next 5 to 6 years.
Very much so.
Along with a pretty darn good defense over there in Houston.
Yep.
I think they'll make the playoffs again next year, if not, contend a little bit, at least for, winning their division again.
Absolutely. The Texans are definitely someone to watch moving forward.
Yeah.
Fairly new team. Lots of quarterbacks that came through. Lots of big names that who have been reported to come through. But other than their big name defensive players, no one who's really stood out. This is going to be something to look at moving forward. Quick news, Matt Forte signed with the Jets after reportedly being set to move to Jacksonville.
Yep.
The Bears released him after 8 seasons. He's 30 years old, had his worst season here of late just due to injuries. He's never been injury-prone in the last 8 seasons. He was with Chicago, only rushed for 898 yards. And I say only rush.
Yeah.
But he is 30 years old, but I feel like Matt Forte has a lot in the tank. The Titans signed Matt Castle for a 1-year deal.
Spit it out.
I'm sorry. I was saying – I don't know why I said deer. But he is a 12-year pro. He has experience off the bench, starting. I feel like he's going to be a pretty good backup for Marcus Mariota. And it also gives the Titans a way to trade Zach Mettenberger. In 8 games with the Cowboys, he completed 58% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. But, hey, you're going into a rough situation where you didn't know what you were doing and you were signed halfway through the season.
Right. And, hey, look, Matt Castle, been in the league, like you said, 12 years. He's a pro. He's a seasoned pro. And could be a good learning tree for Mariota on the Titans. Absolutely. And another guy who just signed up as a backup and has pretty much been a really good career backup is Matt Shaw.
Yes.
He just recently signed with the Falcons to back up Matt Ryan. This is definitely not a change of the guard. Matt Ryan is most definitely your A1 quarterback there, and Shaw is a fantastic backup to have in your back pocket. He previously worked with one of Atlanta's offensive coordinators now. He used to work with in Houston, I believe it was. So there is a little connection there. So that's a nice little backup situation for Matt.
Absolutely. And they're saying that Schaub has a chance to compete for the starting position in Atlanta, but he's thrown more pick sixes than he has touchdowns since he left Houston. We digress to move into one I think is one of the biggest moves of the offseason, at least to me, one of the, if not the fastest receivers in the NFL. Travis Benjamin signs a 4-year deal worth $24 million with the San Diego Chargers and a quarterback who is ready to win.
And this guy can flat out go.
Yes.
He is a speed demon.
Yes, he went 68 receptions for 966 yards last year. His breakout season, for what people are calling it, with the Cleveland Browns. And That's without a quarterback.
That's a lot of yak.
I mean,
after completion, of course.
Absolutely. Travis Benjamin is a great wide receiver. Him giving Phillip Rivers more options in San Diego before they decide to move stadiums or whatever they're going to do, whenever they figure that out, that's going to be a deadly combination. The old NC State alum here from the ACC again, which we love. That's going to be a dangerous combination. Watch out for San Diego Chargers. They can figure out how to work him in the system, spread the ball around, and hit him going deep.
But before we get into some more local teams, let's talk about Denver for just a second.
All right.
Okay, so this is where they're at. Peyton retires. Osweiler leaves.
Yep.
Who in the world, I have one in mind, is going to fit in that system?
Unfortunately.
Are we on the same page here? Does he have 3 initials that he goes by, kind of?
One option does.
Is it RG3? I mean, where else is he going to go?
Here's the thing. The Denver Broncos are looking at two quarterbacks to replace what they have lost in Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler.
Polar opposites of those two, mind you.
We're going to look at the Nevada graduate first, Colin Kaepernick, who did have a stellar few seasons with San Francisco.
Oh, boy.
And then just fell off the map, and I don't even know if he's in the NFL anymore.
Can John Elway coach him up a little bit, you think? Well, either of these guys, if you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. Colin Kaepernick, great athlete, was in the division in the WAC, didn't have a lot of competition, went to San Francisco, did a great job for a couple of seasons. Hellacious athlete. There's no questions about that.
Oh, yeah.
So is the other person who yet to be named, who you just referenced a few times. If you don't get it, you just don't get sports. But I mean, Colin Kaepernick, and then the other person who's being looked at, ladies and gentlemen, RG3, or as Cowboy fans call him, RG knee, because he can't stay healthy because of a knee.
Right.
These two people
are going to have to replace
Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler, who had a winning record in Denver.
Osweiler, not as crazy.
I haven't had enough of the whatever's in this cup to talk about this.
Anyways, but for those Denver fans out there, we apologize that your offense is probably not going to be that fantastic next year. And we're going to have to rely on your defense again to win another championship.
If Chris Kelly from our favorite morning show here in North Carolina in the Greensboro Triad area was to ever listen to this show,
which he won't,
which he never will, but I just want to put that out there just in case.
Because we've actually contacted him about this.
Yeah, we have. Go ahead and put that orange jersey that you wore at the comedy show just a month ago in your closet, because there's no reason to talk about it for the next few years.
Yep. All right. All that behind us. We'll look for those signs as we go. And let's talk a little bit about your favorite team.
Yes.
The Steelers.
Yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have picked up tight end Ladarius Green after Heath Miller finally retired. Heath! By all means, definitely the time for him to retire. Been in the league for so many years.
Yep.
But after the Chargers signed Antonio Gates to an extension for 2 years worth $12 million, they were looking to move Ladarius Green. Well, the Steelers do have 2 tight ends, but are they up to the par of Ladarius Green? I don't think so. In his 4-year career, he's played 47 games, caught 77 passes, 1,087 yards, 7 touchdowns.
So there's a little production there. There's leeway for success in that situation, I believe.
Absolutely. He has had a great year. He's going to be the number 1 or number 2 behind Jesse James in terms of the tight end position at Pittsburgh. And it's just going to be another way that we can use the tight end position like we always used Heath throughout the years in terms of making that connection known. Now, moving on to a little local flavor.
Yep.
Charles Johnson.
Your Carolina Panthers here in the Carolinas. Charles Johnson re-signs a 1-year deal. he said this place raised him is what the quote was, and that's nothing but true. And honestly, I don't think they would have released him if he would have put in just a little bit more work the past couple seasons. He was so productive for that 3-4 year time span, and then the last year or so has dropped off the map just a little bit, just enough for basically them not to re-up his current contract.
Yes.
So he signs a 1-year deal, which honestly is good for the Panthers on the field and in the locker room, in my opinion, because they're going to need that shoring up on the defensive line. Because they're getting younger and younger, which is good.
Yep.
But you'd like to have that father figure there in Charles Johnson.
Yep.
Another big re-signing that the Panthers did today was the bowling ball fullback Mike Tolbert.
The best fullback in the NFL.
Oh my goodness, that boy can just straight run over people and just get out the way.
Yeah.
But 2-year extension for Tolbert, and he'll be running over people for years to come. And another little pickup, which I think is actually really, really valuable for the Panthers, Joe Webb. You may not remember Joe Webb, but he is actually very, very apparent on the special teams. He's the third-string quarterback, extremely good athlete. He's also a kick returner and plays kickoffs on defense for the Panthers as well. So he is a jack of all trades for the Panthers. So I think that was a really good thing that they confirmed Joe Webb for another couple of years.
Absolutely. And in terms of moving forward, the last 2 little tidbits we have in terms of NFL news, the Browns are expected to release Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football. Wonder why. Ridiculous signing. Why did you ever draft him in the first round? I'm looking around at the white walls in this room that we're in.
And the painting?
And the painting made by my wonderful fiance. I'm still trying to figure that out.
The sun's always shining on us, as you can see.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. But no one in the history of ever will ever know why they signed Johnny Manziel in the first round. And then one of my biggest surprises, which is, I mean, depending on his age, the Broncos do release tight end Owen Daniels, who after scoring 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl to help them secure the win against the Panthers, has been released from the Denver Broncos.
Yep. Definitely a little bit of a surprise there because he was productive, to say the least. So that's a little bit of a shocker there. Now, little new segment here.
We're moving into the fun stuff, guys.
Just to fill some time
into the fun stuff.
Before we get to
drink to the working.
Oh, dear word. I'm the babysitter on this podcast and apparently at this gentleman's wedding. So I am also a jack of all trades, master of plenty. But some weird sports news for you guys this evening. You may have heard, as the conference tournaments are going on in the NCAA basketball right now, Green Bay, apparently their radio announcer got a little bit too homey on the officials the other night. Yeah. Let's see, speaking of Manziel's, Mike Manziel. Yeah. See, we playing that, right?
We're geniuses. Anybody who wants to sign us, we're geniuses.
Absolutely. Mike Manziel was temporarily ejected from the game. Another school's play-by-play guy had
the University of Oakland.
Okay, thank you for that. I did not have that tidbit. See, this is why we do this. Anyways, he was ousted for a solid 5 minutes of game time. So 15 minutes of actual time.
He made a gesture towards the referee that the referee noticed, like a palm or like, oh my God, that's ridiculous.
Oh, that's what he done.
Yeah, and the referee noticed and was like, you know what? You're gone.
Out of there.
You're gone. Ejected the radio announcer.
That's a new one on me. That one's definitely a new one on me. And the aforementioned Stephen Curry recently got to play Augusta National, which is a nice step for him. But they had
an okay course.
Right. Yeah, you might have heard of it. But Lydia Ko, one of the top women's golfers in the world, paid a visit to the Warriors practice facility. And just for some fun, she was out there putting with the guys. And Stephen, reading the greens at Augusta National, taking in all the azaleas, almost nailed a full court putt into a cup. Apparently, the hardwood breaks to the left at the hole over there. Who knew?
Who knew?
But he almost made that. So, that was a pretty neat experience. You can find the video on golfchannel.com and several other news outlets. But yeah, just some neat little stories to throw in there before we go to what's near and dear to my heart, the ACC Basketball Tournament of Champions.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the ACC, me and Chris have grew up for 20 plus years. All we have ever known is the ACC.
Yep.
It is a proven fact, and unfortunately, we've lost it a few years to Atlanta.
Yep. I've got the schedule right here, and I was going to actually ask you, what do you think of this rotating schedule, or would you rather it stay home in the Carolinas where it was born and bred?
Well, here's my thing. You can read a story that I posted from the Washington Post about what coaches think about playing the ACC tournament in Greensboro, but no matter how you put it, Greensboro is a central location.
Mm-hmm.
Greensboro,
as is Charlotte, if you want to throw that one in there as well,
which is coming in a little bit later.
Yep.
But my thing is that Greensboro is a central location.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry we have 4 teams in the state who compete in the competition.
No kidding.
But I'm sorry that only 2 of the teams decide to show up every other year. One team tried today. We'll talk about that later in another show.
Yep.
Follow us later. But my thing is that my wonderful fiance pointed this out today.
Mm-hmm.
The shot clock failed today in D.C.
And that screws you up. As a player, you're used to looking up for a shot clock, not down.
Instead, you're looking to the side at the scores table.
And somebody might be in the way.
Boom. There's 1 strike, D.C. 1 strike. You messed up. Anyway. I didn't even know that until she told me. So you're out.
I watched a couple of games today, and it was most definitely a bad look for the ACC and for that venue in general. Stuff happens, as we know, but if you're going to host an event like that, you really need to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Absolutely.
So
I respect what they're trying to do, because the ACC wants to be that name.
Yep.
They're either the best conference or the second best conference in the NCAA in terms of basketball, but you can't have stuff like that.
Right. Look, they want to go to the larger markets. That's their whole thing.
DC has the market.
Right. And New York, which they will be going to for the next 2 years in 17 and 18.
Yep.
And then followed by 19 in Charlotte, and 20, it finally returns to our home here in the triad of Greensboro, North Carolina.
Where it belongs.
Where it belongs.
Where you can tailgate freely without being in a city, okay?
Right. And if you think about the Greensboro Coliseum, and this is no disrespect to any other stadium in the area because I've only been to a handful, there is not a bad seat in that stadium. There's not. You can be on the top row of the Greensboro Coliseum, and you can see everything going on.
Yes. Now Charlotte, there's no bad seat in Charlotte. And I feel like Charlotte will be a good host.
Mm-hmm.
It belongs where the ACC Hall of Fame is and where it's been for all these years. I understand what the ACC is trying to do, but if you're going to keep one tournament here in the ACC Women's Championship, the swimming and diving championships in Division I for ACC, keep it here.
Exactly.
We are hosting the Olympic diving and swimming championships, for goodness sake, here in Greensboro.
Now we also hosted the table tennis Olympic trials, mind you,
and
skating,
the figure skating championships in Greensboro.
So big things happening. It's I think 18-ish thousand facility. It'll hold plenty of people. You have so many restaurants, so many hotels. Even though it's a smaller market, it's a perfect place for something like that.
Just contact your boys. We'll tell you where to go.
Exactly. And speaking of that, we have some of the recaps and scores from the first couple of days. On Tuesday, the first 4 of the ACC, not what you want to see, usually.
No, especially not that first
great
game.
Games.
Especially not that first game. But the first game was good, but it's not the 2 teams you want to see.
Okay, Florida State, Boston College. The announcers were having to find stuff to talk about. God bless them. Florida State pulled away 88-66 in that one. And also in that game, or in that first session on Tuesday evening, the NC State Wolfpack narrowly, mind you, defeated the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in the 12-13 matchup. NC State, vastly underperforming team this year, in my opinion, with Mark Gottfried. They only have one legitimate baller on that team, and that, of course, is Cat Barber, who is one of the best in the ACC when it comes to scoring. In my opinion, he still won't get drafted. If he does, he'll go to Europe. He's just one of those guys that's a good player in college. It might not transfer over, but you have to guard him. I mean, but the thing is, with playing NC State, you can get away with putting 2 people on him, and you'll still be okay 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Leading to this, that 1 time out of 10 that you're not okay, Duke ran into today. I was on the quest for 100. I thought it was going to be a 100-point game today. Came down to, I mean, it was tight the whole game. Double-digit lead changes and ties, I believe. So very much back and forth game.
Yeah. State led at halftime. Duke came back, of course, won the game. State only led by 3 at halftime. State, which if you follow any of our earlier stuff before we started the videos on YouTube, I picked State to have a tremendous year.
Whoops.
I'd like to thank NC State for messing up my prediction. You have the talent in terms of Cat Barber, Abu, and my favorite guy, I can't even remember. The 2 Martin brothers.
Do you?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Man,
NC State let me down more than any other team ever in my life in terms of a pick that I made.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Continue, Chris.
All right, with that one, Duke did narrowly escape 92-88, 89, pardon me. So very, very close game. They had a chance to tie it there in the end. Cat Barber, for whatever reason, decided to pass the ball and created a turnover, and that was your ball game. In the other second-round matchup, you had Pittsburgh versus Syracuse. Somewhat of a surprise. Pittsburgh in the middle of the conference. Yeah. Jamie Dixon's squad doing a nice season, 9-9 in the conference, as well as Syracuse, both going 500, both bubble teams for the NCAA tournament. But Pitt ended up getting the win, 72-71. Sorry, I keep looking at the score sheet, folks, but another tight game. Pitt actually had a double-digit lead. Syracuse came all the way back and almost got the W. So your quarterfinal matchups look like this after we find out the winners of the evening session tonight. Number 1 seed North Carolina Tar Heels versus Pittsburgh tomorrow at 12 p.m. Unfortunately, I will be at work.
Ridiculous.
Come on. And Notre Dame versus Duke in what should be a very good game in the 4-5 matchup.
Yes.
Then you have number 2 Virginia taking on the winner of Clemson and Georgia Tech. And number 3 Miami taking on the winner of Florida State and Virginia Tech. Another surprising team in the ACC this year, Virginia Tech.
Yes.
If you had me pick them at the beginning of the year, it would be the complete opposite. I would have them down there with the Georgia Techs, those type of teams, even though Georgia Tech actually slightly overperformed this year.
Yeah, very much
Virginia Tech is going to be an NCAA tournament team. They were, I think, 10-6 in conference, 10-8. They had an above 500 record in conference, and well-deserved for that team.
Yeah. So
that is it for your ACC tournament coverage. You can find it out on your local television channels if you live here in the Carolinas and on the East Coast, as well as ESPN.
Absolutely. If you live in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem Triad area, WFMY News 2 is airing every game for the ACC tournament. Please go to them. Watch every game. Feel our love for the ACC.
I mean, it's good stuff. It's quality basketball.
Yes.
Even though I have a soft spot for the mid-majors because they run your set type of basketball.
Which we're going to talk about on Monday.
Did I miss that? I think I missed that. In my Pop Tops, I apologize. Some more local basketball flavor. I don't ever miss them. Not really. UNC Asheville.
Yes.
And UNC Wilmington both picked up the wins in their conference tournaments and have punched their tickets to the big dance.
Absolutely. So if you're counting in the state of North Carolina, that means at least 4.
Minimum
4. Mm-hmm. Well, at most 4 since NC State lost.
Yeah.
Which was my pick. Wolfpack. We're going to have at least 4 teams from the state of North Carolina in the NCAA field of 68 now.
Mm-hmm.
So be ready. We have UNC Asheville, UNCW, who each won their conference tournament, and then we're going to have Carolina, who's at least going to be a shoe-in whether they win the tournament or not, and also Duke, which is a top 25 team. So we have at least 4 teams from North Carolina. We're going to be following those 4 teams closely to keep up, let you know exactly where they stand, and also, I mean, there's a special show coming up. There's a special show coming up Monday. Tune in. Tune in to the Monday show.
Absolutely. And just real quick before we remind the folks about that, who you got in who's left over in this ACC tournament? Are you going to be like me and go with the Tar Heels, or do you feel a little bit of an upset coming?
I mean, honestly, in terms of what I'm seeing, me and Leslie, my fiance, had this talk earlier. Duke's dangerous, even though they're only 7-8 deep.
6 or 7. I wouldn't even give him 8.
You wouldn't even give him 8? Oh, my goodness.
Mike Krzyzewski's rotation in the past 2 months has been 7 maximum. He goes to Chase Jeter off the bench, and that is it. My dark horse, if there was an upset, Miami Hurricanes.
I agree with that statement.
Miami Hurricanes.
I agree with that statement. In terms of 2 dark horses, since Chris is asking for my pick, in terms of your dark horse all-time championship ACC game, and tell me if I'm wrong by this, because North Carolina's shaky at best.
We like to win the regular season and then absolutely kill ourselves in the tournament.
So tell me this in terms of a championship prediction: Pitt versus Miami.
Well, let me take this away. I'm just kidding.
But no, tell me that's not.
If you look at the bracket, that actually has a little bit of merit to it.
Yeah,
because Pitt is dangerous on any given day.
Exactly.
They
got a great head coach.
Right, and it's one of those things that if they do make it into the NCAA tournament as an 11 or 12 seed, that 5 or 6 seed better watch out.
Yeah,
I mean they're one of those types of teams.
Yep. If I had to pick, if you wanted my dark horse in the ACC, if I'm picking the championship game in terms of just randomly picking, I'd pick Pitt and Miami.
Okay.
If I had to go with my gut instinct, I'm picking Notre Dame and Virginia.
I'll give you that.
That's my 2 picks for the championship game.
I'll give you that.
North Carolina's going to lose out. Duke does not have the depth to move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to have a North Carolina team in the championship game.
We'll recap that one on Monday as well. I need to write a little asterisk down there. All right, so to one of my favorite days of the year, just a few short days away, Selection Sunday. And a quick little story about Selection Sunday. Mark Few, the coach of the Gonzaga basketball team, they've made the tournament 18 years in a row. This year, they were on the outside looking in if they did not win their conference championship.
Against St. Mary's.
Against St. Mary's. Yep. And they won that game by 10.
Good.
And Mark Few said, I have a son that's 17 years old. He has been to every single NCAA tournament that we have been in. And his favorite day of the year is not his birthday. It's Selection Sunday.
Wow.
So that's a neat little story from Mark Few there.
It is.
But so Selection Sunday, this coming Sunday, we will see the return of the CT Sports Report Bracket Challenge.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by. We will be inviting all of our friends, family, people we don't even know. I mean, if you live in the state of California, we're going to invite you for this bracket challenge.
Absolutely. And you will see all the links on Twitter. We'll probably use the pinned tweet for our bracket challenge link on Monday. We will have a special show on Monday evening with the brackets in mind, going through doing our picks live on the air. And I'm sure you'll see a few hot takes and some common sense as well.
There will.
What? Last year.
Oh shit!
Okay. PG show.
Don't listen.
We can edit that out. Not really. You picked a 16 over a 1.
I did pick a 16 over a 1.
How'd that work out for you?
I lost.
Do we have a recap? Are you going to try it again?
I may very well if you listen to everybody on the mothership
Mm-hmm.
and on CBS
Mm-hmm.
and on every sports show besides us, because I just dropped the cuss bomb and we can't edit it out because we don't have that type of technology.
Right.
We're broke. This is the best season for it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the worst, and I state the worst NCAA tournament that we will ever have.
Now look, I agree that the quality has lessened, mostly due to the one and done rule. Either you need to wipe that rule away like it was in the past, or
Make it like football. Make it like football.
Either like
3 years or 21.
Right, and then you also have that option if you're 3 years in and actually pass all your classes, because you have to stay eligible.
Hashtag Simmons from LSU.
Okay. Tutor or not, Carolina.
Simmons from LSU.
Yeah, definitely Simmons. We would see the quality rise once again if we did that.
Yep.
But, lots of buts here.
Lots of buts.
Lots of buts. Big ones, too. With that said, there's going to be the most parity in this tournament. Lots of close games. And like you said, lots of potential upsets that could happen.
Yes.
So actually, for a tournament standpoint, I think it makes it more exciting.
Yes. In terms of if you like close games in a competition standpoint, in terms of making you, hey, I'm going to sit on the edge of my seat and I'm going to watch every game, this may be the season for you. This may be the season where we have mid-majors move into the Elite Eight.
Mm-hmm.
The Final Four, other than George Mason, who was the only one out of the Final Four out of that year. This may be the season for you. This is the season to watch. If you're betting money, which
we can't.
Me and Chris will never bet money on college sports. FYI, that's a dumb idea.
And so is betting on professional wrestling, by the way. Predetermined outcomes.
Anyway, this is not the season to do it. You're not going to know what's going to happen.
Nope.
We have a Kansas team who's won umpteen many straight conference titles, who is not that great of a team, who's going to lose in the first or second round.
Ooh.
We have a
save the hot takes for Monday.
We got a North Carolina team. We have a UNC Chapel Hill team, who I believe is the same thing going to happen. Again, all things that are going to happen Monday, but it's going to be a fun tournament in terms of seeing how many upsets, how good are teams really. Like the Green Bay that you mentioned,
right?
Who sealed their deal with the Horizon League tournament.
Yep.
The UNC Asheville, who no one knows who they are.
They're going to surprise people. I think actually Wilmington has a little better chance of getting one of those upsets. They might be in one of those first 4 games, or right there as a 15 or 16.
Yep.
But you look at these teams, you look at their records against their conference, you look at the way they performed against some of the larger teams earlier in the year, because the big teams have to have their cupcakes, but they performed pretty well. So this year, I'm actually really looking forward to the tournament. Unfortunately, I will not be able to take any time off work to watch said tournament. I remember back in the day when you and I could go to Freddie Little's class in the Chatham Central High School gym, and they would have the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament on the television, and we'd watch it during school.
Yeah.
I hope I just did not get them fired or retired. But with that said,
even my last job, I was able to take
memories.
off. You remember you met me at the ACC tournament 2 years ago?
Fond memories.
Yeah. Oh my God, we met the
folks at Old
Bobby Crimmins.
Yeah, we did. We
met Crimmins. I got Crimmins autograph.
We have autographs. So, but with all that said, we'll talk more about all this stuff on Monday on your selection special for the CT Sports Report. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for today's show. Covered a lot. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, give us a shout on CT_Sports Report on Twitter, CT Sports Report on Facebook. I think it's just about time to call an evening. What do you say, Mr. T?
Absolutely. We have had a great show. I dropped a word that shouldn't be dropped on television. I feel like one of those people on ESPN who is probably going to get suspended
You're fired.
for a few. I'm the
It's the CC Sports Report now.
I'm the only half of the show. Anyway, Chris is probably going to lecture me after the show about that.
It's all good.
But nonetheless,
there's the only one of the show.
if my mom listens to the whole show, this is for you. But follow us. We know what we're talking about. We study before we start the show.
More hot takes.
Be ready for Monday when there's more hot takes than you know what to deal with.
Absolutely.
I am prepared. I don't have cable. I'm watching the underleague shows. I am ready to go. I will consult my father, James Tigg, to be ready to drop all sorts of knowledge on everybody. Chris, are you ready?
I'm ready because that would be one inspiring guest to have. Absolutely.
I wish he knew how to work a computer. I'd tell him how to get here.
Exactly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap it up for this evening. My name is Chris Calicut.
My name is Cody Tigg. Thank you for listening to the CT _ Sports Report on Twitter, and follow us on the Google Hangouts. We'll be posting this video everywhere possibly imaginable. That way you can hear our beautiful voices, which are made for radio, and faces that are made for radio in terms of moving forward in our careers. Follow us, share us, let us know what you think. We thank you for a wonderful evening.
Absolutely. Have a good night, guys.